Spread the positivity around, that we'll find a solution. Solution to our lives. Rise up above. Rise up for love.
8:32. Good morning. Tuesday, May 10th. Cover Me with Burger King and Dokuma Pacifica is coming up right here on the link. Guahusi Chris, thank you. Facebook Live, The Breeze, KUAM FM, I got New Guam. Thank you guys. Public Auditor BJ Cruz joins us in the KUAM News Link Zoom room, and the Public Auditor in his dress blues this morning. Are you going on a field trip, Public Auditor?
Yes.
And what's
I have to go over and shake hands at the legislature.
So what's try to go ahead, finish. What is your
see if I can get some assistance in assuring the independence of the office and financial powers.
I don't know if you
fiscal powers.
Right. Yeah, I had Senator Joanne Brown as she has introduced the bill. Did you read the bill reaction? If any?
Yes. I was very, very pleased with that, and I want to publicly thank the good senator and his staff for having put that together. They heard my pleas and put it together in one bill. So, thank you. And as I sent in a note to Jus Maasi, maraming salamat po. Thank you.
The senator was expressing yesterday during the interview her concerns about another measure that she had introduced that was kind of stuck in committee, and she was kind of hoping that it wouldn't be the same fate for this measure. When you go down to the legislature, are you going to kind of maybe go to bat for the measure, or is that the right place for that, or the right time?
I'm going to try, to get at least these issues out there and discuss, so that hopefully maybe not all four will be addressed, but a couple of them that are necessary. Two things that I really feel are imperative right now. The provision on getting this office, the funds to be the one that actually pays the external auditors for the financial audits, so that this office can have a little more leverage in finding out what's happening with the audits. Right now, we do the RFP for the audits. I signed the contract approving it. I signed the contract approving extensions, but during the period that the audit is being done, the external auditor and the agency, I have a relationship that the external auditor believes that the agency is their client, and I want to have the financial resources so that the external auditor understands that the OPA who signs the contract is the client, and therefore should be kept abreast of what is happening. I've been very dismayed that I couldn't meet the deadline of releasing all these audits by February 28th. And even further dismayed by the fact that since March, I have been meeting almost weekly with a couple of the agencies trying to force the audits out, and I'm not getting any response. I keep getting, we'll get it out in a couple of days. On March 30th, they told me, well, we'll give you a draft on April the 7th, and we'll finalize it by April the 15th. April the 15th is coming up. May the 15th is now coming up, and I'm still not getting the final on a couple of these audits, and I don't know what's happening. And The reason why I'm so upset about that is because while these audits are not issued, are not released, this office comes to a standstill. I only have 3 auditor 3s, and all the rest of my staff is auditor 1. Well, no, I have 1 auditor 2, but all my staff are junior. And the auditor 3s are responsible for doing the quality assurance review, and they have to oversee things and these financial audits. So they're unable to devote their time and attention to getting performance audits out. So performance audits are falling behind because they're having to wait and see the first and second and third and fourth drafts of audits and still not get a final because the agency keeps insisting on making more amendments and corrections, and the external auditor hasn't provided us with the final audit so that we can release it.
We had a comment here.
So I'm hoping that if part of the bill that Senator Brown introduced passes, what we'll establish is a trust fund here in the office. At the beginning of the year, the agencies will deposit into that trust fund the amount of the audit that's on the contract, and I will be the one that signs the checks on a regular when it's being invoiced. Yeah. If I'm satisfied with the service and the progress of the audit deems it reasonable to release the check. But if I'm not, then checks don't get released. But right now I have nothing, and I almost feel like they're just sitting there laughing and figuring, who cares what he says? He's not the one signing the checks. And so listen to me and give me additional time. That's just not acceptable.
I think that's a fair.
In fact, I had another meeting last week with both of the agencies. They assured me that by Friday, at the latest Monday, I would receive the finals. Today's Tuesday morning. I was up until midnight last night checking my mail because sometimes they send it at 11:54. Wow. And it didn't come in last night, and it still hasn't come in this morning. No, I just checked my email. They're not in this morning, so I don't know what's happening to them and what is being polished or whatever. And so I want to get that power. The other thing is that I want trying to convince the legislature that they're going to have to establish some kind of parity between ourselves and this office and the other government agencies, because I've done a comparative analysis and for our staff and for our auditor ones, the difference between our starting salary and some of the autonomous agencies is as much as $14,000. Wow. For right out of college. For some positions, for similar positions.
BJ, I'm sorry, BJ. So I know other agencies, they probably don't have auditor one. So what's like the equivalent position, like let's say in another agency?
In some of them, it can be the accountants. Okay. In some agencies, they actually do have auditor ones. Okay. In GPA and GIAA, the GPA one makes $13,000 more as a start. Wow. For Auditor 2, GPA makes $21,000 more. And if I compare with their accounting staff, it's $23,000 more. GIAA, the Auditor 2s, because that's what happened. I've lost all my Auditor 2s and won 3. My Auditor 2 went to GPA for another $21,000. I lost a couple to the Port Authority, and the difference with them is 23,000.
Wow.
I can't ask people to stay if the difference is 50% of their salary. They make 47,000 a year, and they can get 63.
Yeah, so BJ, we see this with law enforcement, right? Where it was like GPD was so underpaid, and then what they did is they gave everybody a raise. And I mean, while it gave all law enforcement a raise, it didn't address the discrepancy that GPD had when compared to other law enforcement personnel. But why do you think there is this disparity from agency to agency with the same position? And do you think that we need to kind of go back and clean up these positions so that there is that parity? That, I mean, you're not the only one talking about it.
Yeah, yes, I really do think so. And actually, I actually think that when the legislature gave the autonomous agencies the authority to have their own certified technical professionals, I believe that we at the legislature intended it to mean certified technical professionals in the respective agency. An accountant is an accountant regardless of whether or not they're at DOA, here at the OPA, whether it's at DPW, or they're at GPA or Port Authority. They do the same thing. They're doing the same, working with the same numbers, working with the same GASB rules. There's nothing unique. Yeah. I thought the CPEs, the certified technical professionals, CTPs, would be like the engineers that are electrical engineers at GPA, or something, or the utility, people that have specific knowledge that only GPA has. But they've run it for the whole set. And, so consequently, their salaries are way out of whack with the rest of the government. And they're right now, one of the auditors was saying, accounting firms was saying, there's a shortage of accountants and auditors in the community right now, and the university isn't turning out as many. And so everybody's competing for them, and in competition, they're outbidding each other, and consequently, I now have 3 auditor 3s and 1 auditor 1 and 10 auditor 1s.
We had a comment here.
It's really difficult to run an office that way with everybody just fresh out of college.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help, too, that you're getting the runaround from some of these directors. Rosemary had a comment, BJ. She says, it's really a shame that these directors aren't complying with their audits in a timely fashion to assist in budget hearings. They behave like they are untouchable and can do whatever they want with no consequences. Slash their salaries and give the monies to the public auditor's office. BJ, just that first comment, would you agree? I mean, you said that you feel like they're sitting back laughing at you.
I hate to think about it and to really admit that, but I really do think that they are. That I call them out in our Zoom meetings. I even have members of their board on there and saying, this is unacceptable, and I want this thing done. And they just listen, and they smile, they look chagrin on the Zoom call, and then as soon as I get off, I'm sure they laughing and flipping me off and saying, "So what? Well, we're not going to get it out in time." In March, I never intended to get it out by April the 15th, and now that it's May the 15th, well, let's see if we have more time to clean it up. And I insist that I tried to explain it to one of the chairs, chairman of one of the agencies, who's a professor. I said, you wouldn't accept that from one of your students if papers are due on a certain date. The papers should be received by that date. You don't give them continuing and we'll do this. Well, they're going to miss their graduation next week if you don't insist that the time limitations be met.
Right.
And I have a responsibility, actually a statutory responsibility, and an ethical responsibility to get all the audits out. I mean, the GovGuam audit out by June the 30th. By the delay of all these agencies, the GovGuam-wide audit can't really start and finish until all the component units are in. And now it's May the 15th. I'm hoping that that the GovGuam audit can get out by the end of June. And by that time, the budget hearings would be complete, and they'll almost be voting.
Wow.
They may not get out until July.
Yeah, and that's where the rubber
It'd
meets
be
the road.
really embarrassing for
right.
me.
Right, BJ, is that you have this. We've already had this situation where senators have had to create a budget without knowing where and how much ARP is at which agency or whatever. So I can only imagine how not having these audits to look at before the whole budget process complicates things. I mean, I guess that's an understatement. So do you think that this reaches is this an ethical issue to you, BJ? Because I feel like they're kind of being coy about it. You're right when you mentioned, and you're talking about this Port Authority of Guam board meeting in which you kind of chastise the port for exactly what we're talking about here.
Well, at least theirs had been released, but it was 6 weeks late at that point.
Yeah.
And some of these other agencies, they're now 2.5 months delayed, and it really is unacceptable. And I need to get the GovGuam-wide audit started so that the legislature will have an idea of what the true financial and fiscal condition of the government is before they vote on the budget.
Right. I mean, it's key.
When I first came here, one agency was so delayed, they didn't finish until August. Wow. And consequently, I was able to get the GovGuam-wide audit out after the budget vote and just a week before the new fiscal year started. And so that's why I've been really trying hard to get agencies together. I made them do Gantt charts to show what progress there should be at any given point. I schedule monthly in some agencies. I'm down to weekly. I think you may have heard me at one point chastise one of the agencies. I may have to revert to my old days as a juvenile court judge and do progress hearings on a weekly basis to see how my juveniles were doing. But I'm like, these should be professionals that respond to instructions and understand that they're not alone, that they are a component unit of the government, and the rest of the building blocks can't be built until they get theirs in.
So in a perfect world, how it's supposed to work, BJ, is that senators, when they begin looking at these agencies' budget requests, should they have those audits in hand so that they can say, okay, you want more on this fund, but the audit says here that you guys are a little hanky-panky with this fund here, right? Is that how it's supposed to work in a perfect world? And
it's supposed to.
Has it worked that way, though, ever?
Well, I understand during the week that they had the education departments in. Thankfully, the charter schools had their audits done before then. So a number of the senators who took the time to read the audits and understood them were able to ask questions to the charter schools about what findings we had in the audits about their use of their money. DOE was able to skate through the hearing because their budget, their audit still wasn't out, and it's still not out. I expected it since last week, and it's still not complete. And they had their hearing 3 weeks ago. The regular agencies don't really have individual budgets, but the GovGuam-wide audit would give a report to the agency of how the government by itself is doing, and how much assistance is going to be needed, and whether or not the projected revenue for next year is understated or overstated could be seen in the audit if they were able to see how the most recent fiscal year ended. But they're not going to be able to see that because it's not going to be done in time.
So, BJ, has this been the practice and the problem since you've been public auditor, or has it gotten worse or better?
It's been a problem. I mean, since I was watching it when I was at the legislature and when I became budget chair, appropriations chair. It's been something that we've been trying. And to her credit, the speaker tried to amend the law to move the release date from June 30th to March 31st. I mistakenly implored her indulgence and asked her to please give me a chance to work with the agencies, that I was getting them to do Gantt charts, and I was going to get that, try to get the reports out in time. Unfortunately, that has failed, and some of the agencies haven't, just disregarded it. And so I'm going to have to go back with, my hat in my hand and apologize to her, and say, well, I guess my asking you to not change the law, you should move on your proposed legislation to change the release date from June 30th to March 30th, and we'll have to just deal with it. Deal with consequences, and the consequences are dire. I mean, really, seriously, if one of the component units has a disclaimed or a modified audit, it could, depending on the size of that agency, affect the GovGuam audit, and it could also affect whether or not GovGuam gets to continue to go on the bond market and gets as favorable ratings as they are getting. And the agencies are the autonomous agencies, their audits are used when it's released. The bond market looks at it to see how they're doing. And so the bond market should really see how these agencies are performing. And GDOE is supposed to be getting the third-party agents off its back, but its audit still isn't out. The superintendent has now announced that he's retiring, and the chairman of the board is also saying he's not going to seek reappointment to the chairmanship. I'm not sure who's going to be at the helm of DOE next year, and whether or not that bodes well for GDOE's request to get the third party agent, fiduciary agent off its back. It doesn't seem like it's going to go that way. You have to get your audits out in time.
There you go. I hate to say he sounds like a broken record, but we could take every interview that we've done here on the link, BJ, and it's a very common theme, which is quite unfortunate. Hopefully, I know a few of the senators, they love the link, and I hope they're listening now. And I hope they're queuing in on a couple of things you said, dire consequences, and I feel like they're laughing at me. I feel like those two things are pretty strong statements this morning. BJ, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Chris.
Good luck down there.
Thank you.
All right. Public Auditor BJ Cruz. Not too happy, right? 8:57, Tuesday, May 10th. I like what he said. We don't know who's going to be at GDOE next year. We don't even know who's going to be in Adelup next year, for that matter, right? It's 8:57, Tuesday, May 10th. Cover Me, brought to you by Burger King and Docomo Pacifica, is coming up right after the break, sir. This is The Link. My name is Chris.